Humans have distinguished themselves from other primates by their exceptional ability to work together in a team effort. So it should come as no surprise that this is a big part of the PvP in our favorite moderately acclaimed MMO, The Elder Scrolls Online. Already early on in the history of PvP, this has led to the formation of Ballgroups, or raids, and associated player guilds. Much to the dismay of some other enjoyers of Purgatory Cyrodiil, these highly organized groups are some of the most influential and toughest opponents you can encounter in PvP. Nothing even comes close to the impact a relatively small group of players can have on the outcome of a keep fight, or the mess that arises when they manage to get hold of a scroll. Considering all the comments in zone chat and on the forums, I think it's safe to state that it's a hot topic. First, a quick overview of what exactly a Ballgroup is for those unfamiliar with PvP. This term is used when players form up in larger coordinated groups of about 8 to 12 players. They have aligned builds and are closely stacked together, hence the ball in Ballgroup. Voice communication and discipline are used to coordinate the group's movement, burst damage and survivability. The players perform a designated task and follow the commands of the raid leader, such as countdowns, movement instructions and the famous stack on crown reminder. Now I have a question for you. Does it take skill to play in a group like that? I'm going to let you cook with this question while I dive deeper on how Ballgroups function and how they are organized. Together, the players of this group form a singular entity that has damage, healing and a lot of shared buffs. Each member of the raid has a specific build to this greater goal, with some building fully into damage, some focusing on healing output and keeping the group alive, and some wearing specific buff sets or taking care of other important auxiliary functions such as crowd control. Most of the damage output comes from a coordinated burst of delayed area of effect skills, AoE spammables, synergies and ultimates. The high amount of healing output comes from cross healing, with many players using skills like Echoing Vigor or Radiating Regeneration, together with some dedicated support builds and defensive ultimates like Gibbering Shelter. This principle translates to the actual sets and skills in the following illustrative damage build and support build that could be run in an organized raid of about 12 people. Keep in mind though that the meta here can always change and the specifics of a build are always discussed and aligned with the rest of the raid beforehand. For a damage build, a good set combination can be Rush of Agony and Rallying Cry, combined with the Symphony of Blades monster set and the Snow Treader's Mythic. Lotus Fan pulls in enemies with Rush of Agony, and then they can get CC'd again when using Mass Hysteria. Someone else can run Plague Break to add a chain reaction when you kill something with this build. Rallying Cry and Symphony of Blades are two support sets, so you can see that even on a DPS build, there's still plenty of support for the other members as well. Snow Treaders is one of the most commonly used mythics in Ballgroups, because they are constantly hit with snares and roots, and trying to run Purge to counter that would be a bad idea. For a support build, a good combination of sets could be Apocryphal Inspiration with Powerful Assault, the Maelstrom Restoration Staff, and One Piece Trainee. This time, both 5-piece sets are there to support the rest, with Apocryphal Inspiration allowing everyone to swap from Tri-Stat Potions to Movability Potions or Armor Potions. This is not a full healer build, but rather a support build which provides some important buffs. Charging Maneuver makes it so that Ballgroups can move away quickly if needed. Fulminating Rune is a really good synergy burst that multiple DDs in the group can make use of when the raid bombs a choke point. Combined with the pull from Rush of Agony or Dark Conversions, this support build is actually a major source of damage with this skill as well. These builds have different purposes, but do have some similarities. They are both AoE focused, provide some cross healing and perform specific functions that are important to the group as a whole. Most decent Ballgroups have some variants on this idea of setups. They practice together to work as a team and to have all the cogs fit in well. The reason Ballgroups are much stronger than individual players is all the shared buffs and heals, which are granted by simply coordinating builds and moving closely together in a group. This cross healing of mainly Echoing Vigor and Radiating Regeneration is also a reason that many point out as a cause for the overpowered state of Ballgroups. There are set raid times in the week where the guild then goes out in Cyrodiil or Imperial City if it's active to fight for the alliance scoreboard, to farm alliance points or other players endlessly, or to look for fights with similar guilds on the other factions. So now it's time to repeat the question: does it take skill to play this way in PvP? The answer is yes, but also no. It completely depends from guild to guild and what kind of purpose they ballgroup for. There is no skill in simply stacking on a crown symbol with every person keeping Echoing Vigor or Radiating Regeneration active. There's also no skill and little effort required in using a ballgroup like this together with a zerg of players of your faction to take over the entire map at 4 AM in the night. Nor is there skill in using the setup to chase down smaller groups and run away as soon as the numbers are somewhat equal. These groups are relatively difficult for solo or non-organized players to take out, but more often than not this kind of ballgroup gets wiped out by a few well-organized small-scalers. They definitely stand no chance against the better ballgroups. That is the other side of this spectrum in this question. It's just the same in PvE, where there is a huge difference in competence when running through normal Helra Citadel and Dreadsail Reef hard mode. Both of these events are raiding, and the groups running them have some basic things in common. But it takes a lot more individual skill and group organization to beat the difficult hard mode. Similarly, in PvP there's no skill in chasing down smaller groups of players sieging a keep. But it takes a lot of practice to be able to capture and hold an outpost in between two enemy factions, or win encounters against other skilled ballgroups that might even outnumber you. The players in the better ballgroups do think for themselves on how and when to make burst damage, keeping everyone else alive and perfecting the positioning of their area of effect, damage and healing. So what can you, an individual player or smaller group, do about them? How do you defeat a well-organized, tightly knitted group with constant healing over time and with its members on a voice chat to coordinate everything? As you might guess, it's not easy. But there are things you can do which can help defeating a ballgroup or at least make it annoying for them to keep on fighting. For starters, let's assume that just leaving them to their business is not an option. The best thing defensively is to just keep in mind the previous parts of this guide, because knowing all this makes ballgroups very predictable. They move in one direction, coordinate ultimates and choke points, and constantly stay moving while keeping heals and buffs up. Then it is a simple matter of not being in the area that you know they want to stack players in to bomb them. Realize that following them around the corner in a doorway is a bad idea, since they'll likely turn around and bomb that exact area. If a ballgroup is in your keep running laps around the top floor, absolutely nothing necessitates you to go up there in the first place. They cannot do anything up there if there's not enough random players to farm. This way you force them on your playing ground, at the lower level of the keep, where it is much easier to fight them because you have the guards at your side and there is less room to run away to for a ballgroup. But that's easier said than done, because I doubt mentioning this will convince all players of this tactic. The ballgroup must be chased out of the keep and into open field one way or another. And that's fine too, so following to this I have a few tips on what works well against them. Unfortunately, that all works well for any kind of XP1, so also against smaller groups or solo players like myself. So I will trust on you, the viewer, to promise to only use it against annoying ballgroups and also chase down smaller targets. If you don't have vastly overwhelming numbers, chances are you and other less organized allies form the exact opponents the ballgroup likes. A juicy stack of players to farm over and over. So here's a couple of things that might help in this case. I have to mention that the best counter to a ballgroup is simply another ballgroup of equal skill or with more members in it. They are able to survive the ballgroup's damage and coordinate their own damage to run in and wipe the opposing raid. Such fights can last a long while in their own right, and good raids might want to avoid fighting each other at times to save 20 minutes of their time. In that sense, it's not much different to how good solo players also avoid each other, since they might be friendly with each other or are not up for an endless duel. In other occasions you can see ballgroups trying to bomb each other with varying success as well. Either way, as a solo or unorganized player in your faction, you probably don't have a skill that spawns a friendly raid to fight the ballgroup with you, so what else can you do against them? You can help out yourself and others by countering what an enemy ballgroup does. Negate is a great example here, as it will force them out of whatever location you cast it in, and might help eliminating them or preventing allies from dying. Sieges like the Meatbag Catapult achieve the same effect, but won't do much on their own either. Same goes for big healing ultimates and healing in general, but that all needs to be combined to be anything near effective. Something I see players trying on occasion is chaining or pulling ballgroups apart with skills like Empowering Chains, Frozen Device and Silver Leash. It's an easy way of trying to focus down one player. The best way to separate a member like this is by pulling them into your Zerg while the ball group is running away from you. That's literally the most Zerg-oriented advice I've ever given on this channel. Experienced ball groups, so those that actually form a problem, are quite used to attempts to pull them apart though, so in the end it's not a super effective tactic and not exactly engaging either. A more engaging tactic would be bombing. Experienced bombers can have a big impact on the ball group, which is by its very definition a very tightly stacked group of players. Even if a bomb doesn't work, it's easy to get out of the fight, reset everything and try again, since ball groups mostly don't chase individual players. Those that do are more likely to die to a successful bomb anyway. To illustrate the effectiveness of bombing, I have a variety of clips against ball groups here. How successful this is depends mostly from ball group to ball group, since my combos are always the same. Races that are not much more than a Zerg stacking on crown are definitely not hard to get rid of when a good bomber is present. Here you see one of those lower tier ball groups who successfully sieged the keep, went in all the way on the walls into a corner tower and used that to siege the inner walls. But as soon as one good bomber gets into the situation, it's forever. All the way to decently skilled ball groups, bombers are quite effective and can make life difficult for them. With the better ball groups, you will also have to choose your timing better, for example right when they push into a keep door, or at the same time as random the gates or sieges hit them. That last part relies mostly on luck, though choosing your timing well can increase your chances with that too. So if you're out to make life difficult for ball groups, bombing is one of the best ways to do so. This is not restricted to Nightblade either, since any class can use the best bombing sets with their own toolkit. Sorcerers can combine their bomb with a negate, an ultimate I mentioned earlier as a really good tool against them. Dragon Knights have corrosive, and on Nightblade you can use onslaught to render all their armor useless. So if there's an annoying ball group, you can prepare for this by carrying around the right sets to switch to a bombing build with add-ons like Wizard's Wardrobe or the Armory Station. The best ball groups have so much constantly ongoing healing that even bombing becomes difficult though. Luckily there's only a few of those. To illustrate this, right now you see footage of me trying to bomb what is arguably one of the best ball groups on PCEU. The damage is there, but everything is out healed in a split second. So in this case, what else can help to fight these players? This is the hardest nut to crack in this video, because the quote-unquote top 1% of ball groups are nearly invincible. They have the players with the most competitive mindset that are each very good in their own right when running solo, in a small scale or in a sweaty duel in Alkir Desert. Combine this with meticulously organized compositions and countless hours of practice, and you get something that you can't pin down even if you have multiple lower tier ball groups on your side. These raids are where it truly feels like there's nothing to do about it, and to an extent this is true. After trying quite a few times, you might get one player with a bomb or a gank build, but I wonder if there's anything else to try. Following some advice from Heresia and Elopi, the Azure Blight set is one thing that could work. It's a set that's tailored pretty well to this fight, because ball groups always stick together. Provided you have a build that easily applies several damage over time effects on them, you'll have a pretty constant stream of explosions, each dealing anywhere from 4k to 10k damage. I ran this on a sorcerer with 5 pieces Zergblight, 5 pieces Morg Tong, Black Rose Dual Wield and the monster set. Balor can be nice to try and burst with negate. Nibene Battle Reef is an attempt at preventing death due to the ball group attacking you with the usual pull sets like Rushing Agony. It's sort of like a bomb blade, except you do smaller explosions at regular intervals, thus applying a nice bit of pressure. It does not take much effort either, so if you're looking for an easy way to have an impact in the fight, this is worth a try. This works pretty well against lower and mid-tier ball groups, just like the other tactics. But against the top ball groups it's still not enough. Another anti-ball group setup I tried is a healing debuff build with Major Defiles and the Gerald Mountains Warchief monster set. Luckily I don't see the latter going around much, as it would be a pain for solo players as well when they get attacked by it. But I do want to mention it just because it seems to be made for this exact kind of situation. You don't care that much about your own healing, but you want to mess up other players. Unfortunately, Gerald Mountain's Warchief does not proc off area of effect damage over time skills, but it did proc off of single target damage skills, like Structured Entropy or Vampire's Bane. Combine this with Dark Flare with its Major Defile, and theoretically you can apply somewhere between a third and half less healing to many members of the ball group. Turns out that yet again this isn't enough either though, so while I'm sure it at least helps, again especially with weaker ball groups, in this case it also wasn't sufficient. I suspect that while all these things might have some effect in their own right, the only way that they will actually make an impact is when they're combined together. Which means for example that a bomber hits them at the same time as the gate is over them, they are debuffed and maybe even sieged. This organization of different things hitting at the same time can be exercised by a small group of players, say 3 or 4, but will obviously be more effective if it's more people, which is exactly what making an organized group yourself is like. So that brings me back nicely in a circle to my original point. The best way to counter a ball group is to be a ball group yourself. But barring that, I hope this guide gave you some more understanding about how ball groups function and how you can deal with them. Thank you for watching.